So definitively, as much as you have seen African countries criticizing some of the African countries criticizing China on the way some Africans were treated by some Chinese, uh, you have also seen some African being shocked by the broader mobilization and that we have had here in the United States and the reaction of the security forces, which has and the reaction of the security forces, which have in a way that many will call police brutality, especially with the death of George Floyd, among many others things which happened. So the way African American, and not just African American, even Caucasian American, because we have seen that during the reaction against in the Black Lives Matter, in the broader Black Lives Matter movement, not just African American have been a victim of police brutality, but also Caucasian or Latin American, among other people have also been victims. So that fact that African have seen, hey, America is supposed to be the leader of the free and democratic world, and we still see some challenges when translated by the ability of the police or the lack of sufficient capacity of the police to contain mobilization without excessive use of force. So this has been perceived differently by different African countries. For example, in the democratic countries, many leaders and citizens have been shocked that we see those type of development in the United States. And in some of the authoritarian countries on the continent, so it was a certain deja vu. So they were some were informally discussing about the inability of the United States to contain the social movement, and therefore were making comments about the lessons that the US often give when those same authoritarian leaders are abusing their citizens. Well, I don't want necessarily to compare those equally, because it is clear that in the United States we have the rule of law, and then abuses exist, but there are also clear processes to address those. So to compare to some of the countries in many African countries, you also have those same rule of law in democratic countries where despite the sporadic occurrence of abuses, citizens can still go to the court and then be successful. But in non-democratic countries, the situation is different, because it's not what we call the rule of law, but what we call instead the rule by law, where law could be applied differently depending as if you are a friend or a supporter of the leader of his or her political party, or the contrary. So to sum it up, I just want to say that yes, on the same way Africans were shocked by the fact that Africans were poorly treated, by the fact that some Africans were poorly treated by some Chinese in China during the COVID-19 pandemic. They were eventually even more shocked by the fact that they were able to witness the police reaction to the Black Lives Matter movement, and how they are treating overall, how the perception on the unfairness that African American are facing, as well as other minority groups, speaking broadly. But in the specific case of police containment of social movement, also the excessive use of force, including against some journalists or some Caucasian. So all those also are sending signal to some of the African countries about the question of fairness, of justice, of equity, of inclusion. And I think the United States has to really be more cautious about how they treat their minorities. If they also want to continue giving lesson to Africans and sharing their experience about how to create a more inclusive, a more democratic, diverse world or countries.